Cinematic Pads is the latest installment of the Spitfire Audio's original series. So in this video, we're going to take a look at some of the samples that come packed in this $30 library and why this might be a perfect option for you. Hey everyone, my name is Robert Rodriguez and I'm a media composer. If you're new here, I want to invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. My goal is to help brand new composers feel confident in their own music writing process. So like I said, Cinematic Pads is the latest installment in Spitfire Audio's Originals collection. Originals are kind of like Spitfire's entry-level products. They cost $29 and are kind of like the next best step from their free labs. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you would know that I'm all about making the entry into this field as easy as possible. Now, Christian Henson, the co-founder of Spitfire, has said that he loves to combine synths with the sound of an orchestra. So when looking at Cinematic Pads, they're supposed to sound super wide and huge, and they're gonna mix really well with an orchestra because that's what they're made of. So if you've purchased any other Spitfire product, they would prompt you to download their installation center. Once you have that downloaded, you'll get something that looks like this. It shows all of your purchased products. I already went and downloaded and installed Cinematic Pads, but it would basically prompt you to put it in a location, a hard drive, external hard drive, wherever, and that's just where it would be saved. And you can see that there are other originals that I have, like Epic Strings or Intimate Strings, and so those are also $29. Lately, Spitfire has really pushed to have their products play through their own dedicated plugin. We can see this with their free labs, the BBC Symphony Orchestra series, and a bunch of other originals. So the design can vary depending on the product, but overall, the originals will have a simple and clean design to it. Now, personally, I'm not a fan of how much space is just left over within the player. I understand that it's meant to keep it looking clean, but I just feel like it takes up so much unnecessary space. Down here, you can make it smaller, but by making it smaller, all the knobs and faders and all the text gets smaller as well. Like, the space isn't really going anywhere. It would be kind of cool if it was reimagined a little bit and maybe the knobs would shift along with the player. I don't know, maybe something like this gets moved over here. The faders over here can get moved to the top right corner. Maybe these four can be placed in a little like square, just something so that I don't feel like I'm losing space. So let's bring it just back to what it was before, roughly around there. But I do want to point out that they have a little button here that lets you collapse the interface. So it does take off that bottom half, which can be useful, but I do like to have everything shown so I can at least see what's going on, but that's just gonna be a personal preference. Overall, the player works fine. So in terms of design, what you're getting in the Cinematic Pads library is a set of 3 faders, 4 knobs, and 2 extra faders that control expression and dynamics. To kind of stick with the whole idea of keeping things decluttered, that's really all you need in this $30 library. But if you compare it to like their Albion collection, then that's gonna have way more options for you to kind of dig in and adjust. On top of that, it comes in at under 3 gigabytes. I think it's somewhere around like 2.8 when you download it. So in terms of storage, whether you have an internal hard drive, you put it on an external hard drive, this is gonna take up very little space, which gives you more room for future libraries. So as with the majority of the original series, you're gonna get 2 pre-assigned faders. The one on the left is gonna be your expression. An expression is typically assigned to CC11 or Continuous Controller 11. The important thing to note about the expression is that it is the volume of a patch. So if I were to just play, like, maybe start down here. So it brings it all the way down, even though I'm still holding on to this key. Now the next fader is gonna be your modulation. Modulation is usually like vibrato or timbre or velocity of a patch. And it's important to note that if you have a mod wheel on your keyboard, mod is short for modulation, so it's basically a modulation wheel. So let's keep expression at relatively loud. So it's very soft and mellow. We can almost think of it as the intensity of the patch. And I want to show you the difference between expression and modulation, because expression could be all the way up, and that's the volume of it, but the modulation could be all the way down. And we still hear a little something, just like a little hum. By bringing the expression down, but the dynamics all the way up, or the modulation wheel all the way up, we get that same intensity as before, but it's just playing at a quieter level. Now, it's gonna be important to note that this big knob here is actually a collection of these 4 down at the bottom. It's just supposed to be in a convenient location for you to access these. So if you were to close the player like that, you still can affect reverb, attack, release, and distortion. Reverb, attack, release, distortion. So it's just a quick and easy way to get to those 4 knobs. The reverb is going to be the amount of space that your patch is in. So the more reverb, the larger the space. And that really can affect the noise level or the quality of the noise. Right now it's at around 25%. Let's increase that all the way. The attack is going to be the amount of time that it takes for each note to be played. So if you were to hit a note, it could take a few milliseconds to maybe a second to hear the start of that note. So right now, 60 is going to be... If we were to raise it even more to 100, so it takes longer for it to rise. But if we were to bring it all the way down, listen to how quickly the note starts to play. Compared to... So you can really take attack time into consideration depending on the music that you're writing. So the release is going to be how long it takes for your sound to kind of fall off. And if I were to play a note, let it play, let it play, let it play, release, and just about now is when it fell off. Bring it all the way to 0 and listen to how quickly it's going to stop playing. So play, play, play. And now that little bit that we heard after the release was probably from the reverb. If I were to increase the reverb, but then keep the release low, we'll probably still hear the space that it's in. So you probably heard the harshness of the note quickly let go, but the reverb was that extra ambient sound that we heard. Let's say reverb all the way down, release all the way down. There shouldn't be anything left over. Cuts off completely. So that's really cool for like sound design kind of effects. I'm curious, what's the attack like if I brought it all the way down? Not as natural, but you could make some cool sounds like that. Let's say attack is 30. We'll bring release back. And distortion. This is how crunchy you want that sound. So maybe let's start off nice and calm. Maybe let's bring expression down a little bit. So distortion definitely gives it that crunchy and harsh sound if that's what you're looking for. And one thing to note is that these knobs are all customizable. So you can click on it, assign which knob on your own keyboard you want to assign it to. And that way, let's say this is away or whatever, you can record and you can adjust directly on the keyboard. Then over to the left, you'll get your microphone signals. So you have something that they call mellow, bright, and cinematic. Now, when you're writing music, you may not actually be touching these three signals once you're in the writing process. These typically affect the volume of the microphone itself. What you might do is play around with the three settings, balance them out a little bit, and then preset that before you actually start writing. And this is great because you can then, let's say, save mixer preset down at the bottom. And let's say you find a right balance, you can save it and pull it up whenever you want it again. But typically I won't touch these once I start writing unless I want to change the sound of the patch. So out of the box, you're gonna get 23 different presets created by Spitfire. If you were to go to this down arrow, you'll get the full 23. What's cool is that you can just star whichever ones you like. Then you can add that to your favorite folder, your starred folder. And then down here where it says user is where you will find all of your user presets. So you went in, you adjusted, you rebalanced everything. This is where you will find your saved user presets. Another cool thing is that you can play a sample of each one. That's kind of cool, so you don't have to keep loading or unloading the different patches. You can just kind of get an idea of what it's gonna sound like. Just hover over the eye and you'll get something that says, like a marimba made of ice, played with a bow, like condensing breath as you exhale on a winter's night, like a distant church organ with spectral fragments, like ocean spray during a storm at sea. So let's see, right now we are in Glacial Marimbium. A lot of the Spitfire promotional videos that they've been releasing for cinematic pads focused on a few of these already. Like I know Glacial is already one of them. I think Deep Churn might be another, maybe Midnight Waves. I kind of want to focus on ones that weren't shared. Maybe Roadside Crosstalk. So it comes preset. Mellow is just below, so it's 40%. Bright is 50%. Cinematic is 40%. There's going to be a lot of reverb on here. The attack is going to be very slow. The release is very quick. And there's no distortion, and it comes with the expression and dynamics already at 100. So maybe let's bring it down just a little bit and let's go. Awesome. So that release was very quick, but we heard that reverb really filling in the space. What I want to kind of work with is mellow versus bright versus cinematic. So let's take out bright and cinematic, and what do we get? So you really get that low end, that humming low end. It takes a while for it to play. So this wouldn't be for any type of melodic line, or at least a fast-moving melodic line, because the attack is so slow, but we could adjust that if we wanted to. Let's try bright as well. Just mellow and bright. So bright really brings in that top end, that harsh, kind of narrow top end, whereas mellow brings out just that full space underneath. It's that humming, just constant sound. And then cinematic. Interesting. So cinematic was just that wide stereo sound. The way I heard it was kind of out to the sides, and then bright was kind of on top, and mellow was kind of in that middle bottom area. So it really fills in that image, which was a really nice sound. So that's really nice. We can go back. Let's try bowed glass. All right, so I feel like a lot of pad libraries will have something similar to bowed glass. The attack is roughly 50%, the release is roughly 50%, so that makes it a bit more agile than the last patch that we heard. But I want to hear it even more. It does take a little bit of time. Maybe that was too quick. So I think what I would want to do is find an in-between, maybe not all the way down here, not all the way 50%, somewhere like 35 or something. The release, I would even want to bring down. And let's try bringing the mellow down, but the bright up. Very nice. And cinematic, I'm assuming once again will be that stereo wide sound. I think this was low. I want to keep it relatively close to what it came as. So you can kind of start understanding how each signal affects the patch. Mellow kind of fills it out, bright is kind of that top end, and cinematic is that wide sound. Let's see, Euphoric Sandstorm. Mellow, it's not going to be cinematic. It will be bright as well. The reverb, not so much. The attack will be relatively quick. The release is going to take a bit longer, and again, no distortion. It's interesting that nothing starts off with distortion. I think that's more to taste kind of thing. So let's go. Okay, it's already kind of distorted. So let's bring that down. You got that hum. it's still going. Very nice. Okay, that is an intense sound. That is kind of that epic, you know, something massive is happening on screen in front of you, you know? That's fun. I really like the difference, basically kind of in tone from low modulation to high modulation. It really brings the music to life. What if we were to bring down mellow, keep it bright? Even when the modulation's down here, it just has that intense static. It's like an echo. Nice. Let's keep it mellow. Let's bring down bright. Oh, I didn't try cinematic. Just throughout the entire cinematic pads library, I'm a big fan of the cinematic fader. Maybe let's try one more, Mountaintop Wind. All right, so reverb all the way up, attack 25, which is pretty typical. Release is also 66, so it's gonna be a long one, and no distortion. Mellow is 70, bright is 35, cinematic is 30. So let's see what we get. Cool. That one's a lot of fun. I really like that one. So I've said this before, but you're really gonna wanna go in and adjust these presets to your liking, because if everyone just has the same 23 presets without doing anything to them, everyone's gonna sound the same. Someone listening could be like, oh, where did I hear that sound? That sounds very familiar. So you're gonna wanna create your own stuff, adjust, balance the signal faders, go through, adjust the reverb and the release, really find your own sound. And once you find that sound, change it again. This will keep you from sounding like every other composer out there. So overall, I think this is a great pads library. Thanks to the cinematic signal, it's gonna give it that super wide stereo sound. It's gonna be great for just mixing well with orchestras, and it's gonna match to picture very nicely. I would suggest looking into some of their other synth-based products, because remember, what they do is combine synths with orchestral music. That's how this entire library was created. Spitfire has other libraries at $29. These are kind of your entry-level products outside of your free labs. The next level of products that Spitfire offers is probably gonna be in that $100 to $200 range, if not more. That's where you're gonna get way more presets. You'll get a lot more to customize. Recently, they came out with the Contemporary Drama Toolkit, which has a lot of just synth-based sounds that mix really well to picture. And they also have products like the Oliver Arnold collection. They have a whole bunch more that you can definitely check out. And then of course they have the Albion series. Albion is their top tier product in terms of synths and full orchestras and percussion. It's kind of that all-in-one library if you're looking for that. But remember, something like Albion is gonna be maybe $300, $400, possibly $500. So it's important to do some research, take your budget into consideration, and think about what you really need from a library. Maybe you don't even write with pads or synths all that often. Maybe this $30 library could be the perfect place to start. And I do want to mention that a lot of people can get upset with these original libraries from Spitfire because they may be repackaged from the Albion legacy samples. But for someone who, one, doesn't have access to those legacy samples, and two, can't afford the Albion libraries to begin with, then I would say these originals are probably the perfect option for you. Also, according to the Spitfire site, originals are repackaged and remastered from the legacy library. And owners of the Albion legacy library automatically get cinematic pads for free. So it's not like these owners have to pay for updated samples. And if something is a legacy product, then that typically means it's not available to the general public. So if you want access to those samples, these originals would be the way to do so. I think it is important to remember who these originals are for and what Spitfire Audio represents. These originals are just the next step up from the free monthly labs. So if you're brand new and just entering this field, don't make the mistake of buying all of these expensive libraries because you think that's what's gonna make your music sound better. At just $30, the samples are rich, they're recorded at Air Studios, you get a bunch of mic positions and presets, you also get it all under 3 gigabytes. So anyone just starting out really can't go wrong with getting these originals. Also, if you're not new to composing and you already have a solid library from a bunch of different developers, then cinematic pads might be just another great addition to your library. Either way, let me know if you got value out of today's video. If you did, I want you to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new music content. And if you are brand new to composing, I want to give you access to my free composer genre quick start guide. It's a downloadable PDF that can help you start composing in almost any genre for film or television. So if you want to start writing some action music, just follow these 4 basic foundations for the action category, and you'll have a basic starting point. If you want to score some fantasy music, just follow those 4 foundations and you'll be good to go. You'll really start to pick up and recognize which characteristics define each genre. So if you're interested, I left a link for that in the description down below. All right, so go ahead, check out cinematic pads, and as always, happy composing.